Please don't forget subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to get notified of new daily videos.
I've lived in this valley my entire life, retired now from running my carpentry business, enjoying the quiet rhythms of nature. My neighbors, Elara and Marcus Thorne, are two of the kindest souls you'd ever meet. They've been on their homestead even longer than me, nurturing their land, their small orchard, and a beautiful little stream that trickles through their property, feeding a pond Marcus built by hand decades ago. Their place is a sanctuary. That peace was shattered when Ron Pinter blew into the valley. He was a city developer, bought the sprawling acreage adjacent to Elara and Marcus, planning to build some luxury eco-retreat, basically a glamping resort. We knew he was coming, but we expected him to be a decent neighbor. We were wrong. Ron needed an access road for his heavy machinery, and later for his guests. There was a perfectly viable, though slightly longer and more challenging, route entirely on his own land. But Ron, in his infinite arrogance, decided that wasn't efficient enough. One morning, Elara and Marcus woke up to the sound of chainsaws and excavators. Without a single word, without any warning or permission, Ron had bulldozed a wide, raw access track directly across a cherished corner of their property. He obliterated a small grove of ancient oak saplings they'd planted in memory of family, ripped up the banks of their little stream, turning its clear water muddy, and left a gaping scar in their peaceful landscape. It wasn't just a trespass, it was an act of desecration. Elara, bless her heart, tried to talk to the crew, then called Ron directly. He was dismissive, arrogant. He told them their tiny patch of dirt wasn't worth his time, and that his surveyors had assured him he was on his own land, a blatant lie. He dared them to take him to court, knowing full well Elara and Marcus, in their 70s, didn't have the energy or the deep pockets for a prolonged legal battle. My blood absolutely boiled when Marcus recounted the conversation to me, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and helplessness. This wasn't just a property dispute, it was a fundamental violation of respect and decency. I couldn't stand by and watch Ron walk all over them. My old Big Bertha, a colossal 1970s forestry truck I'd used for hauling timber in my younger days, sat rusting in my barn, but her engine still turned over. I called Elara and Marcus, went over with a bottle of their favorite peach schnapps, and laid out my plan. Marcus's eyes twinkled as I spoke, and Elara let out a laugh I hadn't heard from her in weeks. They gave me their enthusiastic and very legal permission. The next morning before dawn, I fired up Big Bertha. Her diesel engine rumbled to life, a comforting growl that I knew would soon become Ron's worst nightmare. I slowly maneuvered her down my driveway, then onto the path Ron had so casually carved. I positioned her with surgical precision, right where the illegal access road crossed Elara and Marcus's property line. Bertha was a monster, nearly 30 feet long, old and rusty, but utterly immovable without serious heavy equipment. She perfectly blocked the entire width of Ron's newly graded path. I climbed out, surveyed my work, and affixed a laminated note to her windshield. It read, in bold, unambiguous letters, "This vehicle is lawfully parked on the private property of Elara and Marcus Thorne. Access to their land is denied to unauthorized personnel and vehicles. Any attempt to move, damage, or tow this truck will result in charges of criminal trespassing, theft, and property damage. For inquiries, call Arthur Jenkins, 555-0100. I sealed the deal by chaining the front and rear axles to two deeply embedded concrete anchors I'd placed there years ago, just for securing large loads, making sure even a heavy-duty tow truck would struggle. Hours later, the first of Ron's delivery trucks arrived, loaded with building materials. They honked, then stopped dead. The drivers read my note, cursed, and called their foreman. The foreman called Ron. I heard later that Ron absolutely exploded on the phone. He called Elara, who calmly reiterated that the truck was on their land with their permission, and they wouldn't ask me to move it until he made things right. Then he called me. "Arthur, what the hell do you think you're doing?" he shrieked. I simply replied, "Ron, my truck is parked legally on private land. You're welcome to discuss it with the landowners, Elara and Marcus." "I'll have it towed. I'll have you arrested." "Go right ahead," I said, my voice as calm as the valley on a summer morning. "You'll be trespassing, damaging private property, and interfering with a lawful vehicle. I've got legal counsel ready, and I suggest you review the property lines yourself, or better yet, hire competent surveyors this time. My truck sat there for nearly 3 weeks. Every day, Ron's construction crews showed up, unable to access the site. Deliveries were turned away, costing him enormous fees. His earth movers sat idle. I learned through the grapevine that his initial luxury glamping reservations were being canceled. His investors were getting antsy, and the local permit office started asking questions about his alternative access plans. The daily penalties for delays alone were crippling him. Finally, Ron cracked. He came to Elara and Marcus, hat in hand, looking like a ghost. He offered a settlement. They, being generous, brought me into the negotiation. We didn't ask for an easement. We demanded he fully restore their damaged land, replant the oaks, reroute the stream, and clean up every last bit of debris, and he had to commit to building his access road entirely on his own property, even if it meant significant blasting and engineering challenges. On top of that, he had to pay them a substantial sum for the distress and the invasion, enough to ensure their comfortable future, and cover all my legal counsel. My grandson, a law student, who wrote my note for a 6-pack of craft beer. The fallout for Ron was immense. The rerouting of his road cost him nearly $1 million more than his original budget, pushing his project back by months. He lost almost all his pre-bookings, and many of his initial investors pulled out. His eco-retreat opened almost a year late, at a fraction of its planned capacity, and with a tarnished reputation in the community. He eventually sold it off at a huge loss a few years later. My old truck still sits in my barn, cleaned up and ready for duty. Sometimes, when the evening light hits the valley just right, I look over at Elara and Marcus's restored property. The young oaks now thriving, the stream running clear, and I smile. It just goes to show you, sometimes the simplest acts of defiance, rooted in principle and backed by an old truck, can humble the mightiest of bulldozers and deliver a truly satisfying taste of justice.
If you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button to like it. And please do subscribe to support the channel.